The Laurel Highlands of southwestern Pennsylvania lie in darkness, ridge after ridge of oak and pine silhouettes sliding under a starless sky. At 2:11 a.m., the only light along the northbound shoulder of U.S. Route 219 flares orange and violent. A hot knot of flame no bigger than a campfire yet bright enough to slap color onto surrounding milkweed stalks. Eli, Red, Donnelly, captain of the Pleasant Gap Volunteer Fire Company, is on his way home from a mutual aid drill in Johnstown when that flash punches through his windshield. Red's old F-150 rocks to a halt, hazard strobes ticking, steel-toe boots crunching gravel as he hops out with a 5-pound ABC extinguisher in one hand and his handheld radio in the other. Cambria, engine 12-1 on tack 3. He calls, forcing calm into his throat. I've got a working fire. Unknown type, Route 219. Mile marker 146. Northbound shoulder. Dispatch acknowledges. Red steps closer, squinting through heat shimmer. The fire's center looks wrong. Limbs. Maybe? Something curled on its back. Then the wind swings a tongue of flame aside and he sees a foot. 5 seconds later recognition slams him like a body blow. It isn't a brush pile. It's someone burning. Training overrides panic. Evidence preservation. He thinks. No fire hose. No direct blast. He tilts the extinguisher 45 degrees. Dust raining instead of rocketing. White powder hissing as it smothers the flames layer by reluctant layer. Plastic sheeting has melted into the corpse, snapping and shrinking like shrink wrap in a heat gun. The air reeks of diesel, accelerant, and the sick sweet tang of pork left too long on a grill. Before the last ember dies, a black and white Crown Vic noses over the hill. Emergency bar flooding the scene blue. Trooper Dane Harker jogs up, eyes wide, left hand gripping his maglite, right hovering near the holster. Within 8 minutes additional cruisers block the highway in both directions. Road flares fizzling crimson arcs across the asphalt. Cameras flash, boots stamp out stray sparks. Yellow crime scene ribbon crackles in the breeze like cautionary applause. Detective Maya Ramirez, Pennsylvania State Police Criminal Investigations, is roused from a shallow sofa sleep at 2:39. She pulls on jeans, cuffs her dark hair into a stubby ponytail, and is barreling east on I-99 12 minutes later, chewing caffeine gum so fiercely her jaw aches. By 4:14 she's waving through the outer cordon, gravel spraying under her tires as she angles into a floodlit lane of cruisers. Command van, and a refrigerated medical examiner's transport already sweating condensation in humid June air. Trooper Harker briefs her, female victim. Identity unknown, wrapped in polyethylene and duct tape. Accelerant present. Ramirez crouches beside the body, now cooling on a vinyl stretcher but still partially exposed for photographs. Ears are gone, nose and fingertips too. Edges of flesh scorched bone white where heat stripped skin. Beneath the lower back an oblong patch of tissue has been surgically removed, rectangle precise. As though someone excised a tattoo, Ramirez exhales through her teeth. Whoever did this worked hard to erase a name. Dr. Lucas Harper, 51, pathologist with 3,000 autopsies behind him, arrives in a mobile forensic unit at first light. He's compact and brisk, Tyvek suit whispering as he knuckles burned plastic away with tweezers, dropping fragments into paper evidence sacks. Lungs show no soot. The victim wasn't breathing when fire engulfed her. Exploration of the abdomen reveals 600 milliliters of clotted blood. Harper traces it to a 2-inch slice through the right lobe of the liver. 4 additional stab tracks mar the neck, one severing the thyroid membrane. X-rays taken an hour later display a telltale blood airline in the right atrium, air embolism, meaning at least one neck wound was inflicted while the heart still pumped. Preliminary cause of death: multiple sharp force injuries with air embolism and massive hemorrhage. Manner: homicide. Back at her Altoona office, Ramirez uploads dental photographs and partial toe prints to Cody's and Namus. No immediate hits. The melted plastic yields microscopic blue fibers, polycotton blend consistent with cheap tarps sold at hardware stores nationwide. Gas can fragments prove to be a consumer 5-gallon pure blue container. Lot numbers traced to a distribution warehouse outside Syracuse. An avenue she files away for later. At 3:46 p.m. an AFIS tech calls, a juvenile match on the left big toe. Sealed record out of Toledo, Ohio. A judge signs the unsealing order. The name that surfaces is Megan K. Whitaker. Born 1998. Last known address Cleveland. Juvenile shoplifting at 16. No adult record. Ramirez digs through credit bureau headers. Finds a cell phone carrier. Subpoenas tower pings. Whitaker recently quit her job as an LPN at Mercy Westlake Hospital 6 weeks prior. Her social feed, public until now, shows a selfie under neon bar light at the Blue Cow Saloon in Salamanca, New York. Posted 4 nights earlier with the caption, "Last round before road tripping home throwing kisses." Ramirez drives 3 hours to Cleveland to knock on a tan duplex near Lake Erie. Megan's mother, Donna Whitaker, opens in-house shoes and mascara smudged fatigue, the detective's badge. The somber tone, she knows before a word is spoken. The scream jolts neighbors' porch lights awake. Between sobs Donna says Megan had fallen in with a new crowd. Upstate. A bartender known only as EJ. Maybe from Elmira or somewhere across the border. She hands Ramirez a rumpled scrap of paper from her daughter's dresser, EJ. 607-555-0198. Cell records tie that very number to dozens of late-night calls with Megan during her final weekend. Ramirez flags it. Salamanca police pull bar surveillance. Megan in jean jacket nursing a hard cider. Bright grin turned to a man maybe 10 years older. Conservative sweater vest. Hairline receding. Footage shows him typing something into her phone. In another clipped angle, he does the same to Megan's friend Jennifer, slipping digits into her contact list under the name J. Brown. The state crime lab, meanwhile, lifts 2 latent thumbprints from the adhesive side of the duct tape on Megan's wrists. Miraculously, the heat didn't bubble that patch. AFIS rings again. Both thumbs belong to Evan James, EJ. Grantham, 33, Elmira address. Rap sheet dotted with misdemeanor assault and a charge for promoting prostitution. When Ramirez phones Salamanca PD with the alias info, Jennifer returns to the station, stares at a 6-pack photo array, and jabs a finger at Grantham's mug. That's him, the creep from the bar. Joint Task Force briefing convenes at dawn in an Elmira substation. As Harper finalizes his autopsy report, blunt dismissal of any accidental head injury explanation, the New York troopers spin license plate readers for Grantham's black Toyota 4Runner. Street cam footage captures the SUV rolling out of town at 11:14 p.m., 2 nights after Megan's last sighting. Headed south toward Pennsylvania and the lonely curve where her body burned. The hunt has begun, and neither borders nor lies will stop it. Rain fell in a slow, deliberate rhythm the next morning as Detective Maya Ramirez stepped into the briefing room at the Elmira substation. The air reeked of coffee, vinyl, and damp wool. A map of the Tri-County region was tacked to the wall. Red pushpins marking key points. Salamanca's Blue Cow Saloon. The wooded stretch off Route 219 where Megan's body had burned. And now, a 2-story duplex off College Avenue, Evan James Grantham's last known residence. State Trooper Will Myers ran the briefing. Voice taut with fatigue, Grantham's cell was pinged 4 times between 2 o'clock and 5 a.m. Sunday. We've matched the tower coordinates. He was traveling southeast, straight shot toward the Pennsylvania border. Ramirez nodded, studying the map. We need eyes on him now. Surveillance, credit card activity, traffic cams. He's off-grid, Myers replied. No debit card use since last Thursday. Last phone ping was Monday, near Lake Seneca. Then it went dark. Ramirez didn't like it. Sociopaths either ran far, or they ran in circles. Back in Altoona, FSU technician Andrew Cho buzzed in with new evidence. Chemical testing on the duct tape revealed traces of automotive primer, possibly from a painted concrete floor, combined with the melted polyethylene and fiber matches from the tarp. The lab suspected the victim had been restrained in a garage or auto shop. Ramirez called Salamanca PD. Officer Lainey Bell, their bar surveillance coordinator, said she recognized Grantham from past encounters. He used to run a detailing shop out near Gifford Corners. Shut it down last winter. It was a lead. Ramirez and Trooper Myers drove north through fog and thinning tree lines to the abandoned building, shuttered, padlocked. with windows papered over from the inside. A faint smell of bleach still lingered in the air near the side door. Inside, the floor was freshly painted. Too fresh. In the corner, they found an empty 5-gallon jug of cement cleaner. Behind a stack of discarded tires was a garbage bag containing latex gloves, duct tape rolls, and an empty Bic lighter caked with ash. The burner phone, they suspected, had been torched separately. Forensics arrived an hour later. Cho and Harper coordinated from afar, requesting soil samples near a floor drain. A blacklight sweep revealed faint splatter near the workbench, some high on the cinderblock wall, suggesting violent motion, possibly a stabbing. Later that evening, the lab called with a chilling confirmation. The partial blood smear on the wall matched Megan Whitaker's DNA. Grantham had killed her here. The next phase was all about movement, figuring out how Megan got from the bar to this shop, and from the shop to the roadside in Cambria County. Ramirez turned to phone records. Using call metadata, tower triangulation, and travel time estimates, they charted a clear sequence. 3:37 a.m. Last confirmed sighting of Megan at the Blue Cow Saloon. 4:10 a.m. First call from Grantham's burner to Megan's phone. Duration: 14 minutes. Tower location: outside Randolph. 4:27 a.m. Second call. 22 seconds. Tower: 5 miles from Megan's home. I'm here type of call. 5:03 a.m. Burner phone pings again. This time on the highway heading southbound. They now had a working theory. Grantham picked her up, drove her to the detailing garage, subdued and murdered her there, then stored her body for at least a full day before transporting her across state lines. But what triggered the killing? Ramirez sat with Jennifer, Megan's friend. Again, Jennifer mentioned something new. Grantham had been weirdly aggressive, asking personal questions within minutes, like he was shopping for something. She said, not flirting, like hunting. Meanwhile, Dr. Harper was going deeper into the autopsy. Under intense magnification, he found signs that one of the neck wounds had been inflicted with a different blade than the others, cleaner edges, deeper puncture. He now believed Megan had been attacked more than once, possibly after regaining consciousness. This wasn't panic. This was ritualistic control. By Thursday morning, a break came. A patrol unit canvassing Route 60 near Corning spotted Grantham's black 4Runner parked under a railroad overpass. Engine cold, windows fogged. They waited. At 9:46 a.m., a man with a gray hoodie and a goatee matching Grantham's DMV photo exited a wooded trail and approached the vehicle. Troopers converged, guns drawn. Grantham surrendered without a word. At the Elmira station, Ramirez sat across from him. He asked for coffee. Nothing else. No lawyer. He smiled slightly and said, I figured you'd find me. That's why I didn't run far. Ramirez stared back. Then tell me what happened to Megan. He licked his lips. I didn't kill her. She was already in trouble when I got there. Typical. She knew this game. Lie first, confuse later. But this time, they weren't starting at zero. They had fingerprints, DNA, blood trails, phone logs, surveillance, and a garage full of ghosts. This was just the beginning. The first thing Evan Grantham asked for after his coffee was a pen. Detective Ramirez gave him a cheap Bic. Blue ink, no cap. He stared at it like it was a test. I can draw you a map, he said, show you where I was. You'll see, it's not what you think. She didn't say anything, just clicked on the recorder. Grantham started talking. He said he met Megan at the Blue Cow by chance. That she was friendly. That they'd hit it off. That they were both leaving town soon. That she said something about not going back home yet. Ramirez let him talk. The details kept shifting. First, she invited him over. Then, she didn't want to go home. Then, he said he just offered her a ride. So why did she end up dead? Evan? He blinked. She was already fading. You know? In the car. She said she'd taken something. I tried to help, but she collapsed. Ramirez knew that was a lie. Toxicology on Megan came back clean. No alcohol. No drugs. Only her own blood. And too much of it spilled in that garage. But she said nothing. Let him sink deeper. He said he panicked. Said he tried CPR. Said the blood came from her nose when she fell. Said she hit her head on the dumbbells. Said he was scared, didn't know what to do. Wrapped her in plastic because he thought maybe she'd still wake up. Then admitted, almost casually, he removed her fingers. Her tattoo. Why? Ramirez asked. To protect her. She was a person. He said, I didn't want people gawking. She leaned in. You burned her. In a ditch. Grantham looked away. That part. I regret. It got out of hand. Later, as he sat alone in holding, Ramirez walked into the adjacent room where the crime lab team was assembling findings. Andrew Cho was flipping through the phone record charts again. He pointed to a gap, 48 minutes unaccounted for between Grantham's call to Megan and the first tower ping en route to the garage. We missed something, Cho said. He stopped somewhere. They backtracked, triangulating signal drift between 3 towers north of Salamanca. One intersection stood out. Route 417 and Pine Ridge Road. A stretch lined with seasonal cabins and abandoned hunting camps. Ramirez and Trooper Myers drove there just after midnight, cutting lights a quarter mile from the tree line. The old road crackled under their tires. Gravel loose from spring melt. Then, through the pines, they saw it. A small hunting shed. Boarded windows. Rusted propane tank. No electricity. But the padlock on the door was new. They forced it open. Inside was bare wood. A cot. A tarp. A roll of duct tape. And a stained hoodie with faded blood. In a corner, a broken phone. Partially crushed. Battery removed. Next to it, an empty wallet with Megan Whitaker's hospital ID. He brought her here first. Back at the lab, Harper reviewed the fresh evidence from the shed. Blood on the hoodie matched Megan. Strands of hair found on the cot were hers. 2. The cot's rusted springs bore scrape marks consistent with restraint. Ramirez didn't sleep that night. The next morning, Harper called with one more update. I ran blood pattern analysis on the SUV's interior. He said, front passenger seat had high-velocity spatter. That means she was alive and moving when she was attacked inside the vehicle. Not after. Not collapsed. He's lying. The DA began drafting the formal charges. But there was still something missing. Grantham's motive. Ramirez interviewed Jennifer again, who remembered a phrase Megan had said days before her death. He wants pictures. That led them to a folder on Grantham's old laptop, recovered by digital forensics after his arrest. Inside, over 200 images of women in compromising, sometimes terrifying poses, many unconscious, all in that garage. Some dated back years. A few matched missing persons reports. One folder was titled simply, Collection. Among them, Megan, eyes half shut, face bruised, still alive. Ramirez left the interview room that afternoon and sat in her car for a long time. Headlights off, engine quiet. In all her years, she'd never seen evil curated so methodically. This wasn't panic, it was ritual, and Megan wasn't the first. Back at HQ, the burner phone was finally decrypted. One number showed up multiple times, more than Megan's. Even. Ramirez called it. A woman answered, nervous, breathy. Hello? Yes. This is Detective Maya Ramirez. I'd like to talk to you about Evan Grantham. Silence. Then a whisper. Oh God. He said he'd kill me if I ever talked. The case had just widened. The woman on the other end of the line gave her name as Mira Stokes. 27. Waitress. Binghamton, New York. Her voice trembled through every sentence. Detective Ramirez told her she didn't have to come to the station. But Mira insisted. I want to look you in the eye when I say it. She said, he ruined me. They met that afternoon in a conference room at the Elmira substation. Mira came alone, wearing a hoodie 2 sizes too big. Face pale and sleepless. She carried a manila envelope packed with photos, screen captures, and old texts. Inside were the pieces of a long unspoken horror. She had met Evan Grantham almost 2 years earlier, except he hadn't used that name. He'd gone by J. Brown. He told her he was a traveling art dealer. Said he collected antique photography. Said he could make her famous. She was 19 at the time. Drifting. And J. He had charm. A slow voice. Quiet eyes. The kind of man who made you feel like the only person in the room. Mira described how it started with modeling sessions, which quickly turned dark. He would pressure her into poses that felt wrong. Then came the nights she couldn't remember. but woke up sore and frightened. By the end, he was threatening to release photos unless she brought him new girls. He wanted me to recruit, she whispered, like I was supposed to hand him the next victim. Ramirez sat in silence, stunned. Mira was their key witness, but she might also be a survivor of attempted trafficking. I left town when I found a picture of me on a site. Mira said. It had a code number. Just a number. No name. No price. I went to the cops once. But they didn't believe me. Said it was a domestic. Ramirez asked to see the photo. Mira pulled it from the envelope. It was black and white. Low res. Grainy. But unmistakable. She sat on the garage floor. Duct tape on her wrists. Eyes wide. Like a deer caught in brights. In the background, faint but visible, were license plates, Ohio plates. He wasn't just a killer. He was documenting his work. By evening, Cho confirmed Myra's story. One of the images from Grantham's laptop folder matched the photo Mira brought. Digital timestamps aligned. Metadata confirmed the camera model. Same lens, same exposure pattern. Grantham had a ritual. Pose, shoot, control. Ramirez requested a deeper dive into the hard drive. That's when the second breakthrough came. Grantham had used multiple aliases over the years. DMV photos, fraud reports, and online profiles showed at least 4: Jay Brown, Nolan Keats, Eric Dillon, and Jay Elias. Each one used in a different state. Each connected to a separate woman who had vanished. They reopened cold case files from as far as Syracuse, Pittsburgh, and Youngstown. In 3 cases, the bodies had never been found. But in each, witnesses remembered a man with calm eyes, a soft voice, and an old camera bag. Ramirez sat down with the FBI that Friday. A task force was forming. She wasn't just investigating a single murder anymore. This was a potential multi-state serial killer. And still, Grantham stayed silent, until Harper walked into the interrogation room holding the forensics report. There's no falling injury. The doctor told him plainly. No subdural hemorrhage, no skull fracture, no internal trauma from a fall. You lied. Grantham just smiled. You can't prove what she said. I can prove what you did, Harper said, and that's enough. Outside, Ramirez got a call from Ohio. A new missing person case, filed by the sister of a girl named Lila Renner, age 23, who had disappeared after meeting a man online. She'd told her roommate she was going to meet a photographer from upstate New York. His name? Jay Brown. The same day, lab results came in from the garage drain. Trace amounts of blood mixed with bleach. DNA confirmed a second unknown female. Lila? They didn't know. Not yet. But the chain was tightening. That night, Ramirez stood outside the station watching the dusk fall across the hills. Thinking about Megan, about Mira, about the unknown women who might never get names again. Inside, Grantham sat quietly in his cell, folding napkins into triangles. Calm as fog, he was already building his next lie. But this time, they would break him. The black Toyota 4Runner sat in the evidence bay like a silent witness. Ramirez stood beside it as the crime lab technicians suited up, masks and goggles in place. The SUV had been towed from under the railway bridge where Grantham had parked it days earlier. From the outside, it looked clean, too clean. Vacuumed, wiped, sanitized. The windows sparkled, floor mats freshly shampooed. But inside, the vehicle held secrets. Andrew Cho sprayed the interior with luminol. The lab went dark, and then it lit up. The center console glowed first, thin lines of blood seeping between plastic seams. A streak ran from the gear shifter to the cup holder. Droplets marked the edge of the front passenger seat. Most damning of all, a small pool had formed under the seatbelt buckle, just between the seat and console. It had soaked into the foam. High-velocity spatter, Cho said softly. It's not transfer, it's impact. Harper leaned over. Means she was attacked here. Not after, not dumped, not moved. Here, they took photographs, scraped samples, and ran DNA. 48 hours later, the blood was confirmed. Megan Whitaker's. Grantham's earlier story, that Megan had collapsed in his garage after falling on weights, was now officially worthless. She bled out inside his vehicle. Back in the interrogation room, Ramirez dropped the photos on the metal table. This is the blood you said never existed. Grantham didn't flinch. It could have come from her nose. You cut her liver. Evan. I didn't. You cut her throat. Silence. Then. I didn't kill her. Ramirez leaned in. Then explained the pictures. The gloves. The duct tape. The blood. The bleach. He folded his arms. I panicked. You always panic? She asked. Even when you pose women in your garage? Still, he said nothing. Meanwhile, the FBI's Behavioral Analysis Unit provided a profile. They described Grantham as a controlled predator. He hunted opportunistically but planned meticulously. Charming, intelligent, likely experienced emotional abuse or neglect in adolescence. Probably began experimenting with dominance and control in early adulthood. The folder marked, collection, was a manifestation of ownership. He didn't just kill, he curated. The team continued searching Grantham's digital trail. They uncovered a deleted cloud storage backup, a mirror of his hard drive. It contained folders dated as far back as 2014, with video clips, audio recordings, and logs. Some of the victims had been recorded begging. Others were unconscious. One folder was named Redbird, a name they couldn't yet connect. But one entry inside stopped the investigation cold. It was a photograph of Megan, alive, mouth taped shut, eyes wide with fear, time-stamped 2 hours after the time Grantham claimed she died. He'd kept her alive longer. Harper revisited the autopsy report. New analysis of bruising on Megan's wrists indicated multiple stages of restraint, ligature marks overlapping. Deeper on one side, it meant she'd been tied down, released, then restrained again. He tortured her, and still Grantham refused to confess. In desperation, Ramirez made a bold move. She arranged for Mira Stokes to visit the station. Not to confront him, but to stand as a silent presence. A reminder, a ghost. Mira stood behind the glass of the interview room's one-way mirror. Grantham was seated inside, waiting. He looked up once, his eyes locked on the glass. On her, his jaw clenched. She's alive, he muttered. Still breathing? Ramirez, watching, asked softly. Why, you tried to kill her too? He whispered. She was supposed to forget. That was enough. The DA added new charges: kidnapping, false imprisonment, attempted sexual assault. The federal team prepared a case for interstate trafficking. Still, one question haunted Ramirez. Who was Redbird? That night, Harper called. I found something in the soft tissue samples. He said, a fragment, under Megan's fingernail. What kind of fragment? Plastic. From a lens. A camera lens. She closed her eyes. He'd filmed the end. 2 days after the discovery of the blood-soaked SUV and the fragment of lens under Megan Whitaker's fingernail. A new name emerged. Redbird was not a person. It was a place. Hidden in Grantham's cloud backups was a GPS-tagged audio log titled Redbird_0715. When Ramirez opened the file, the metadata showed a location in the Allegheny Plateau, near the west branch of the Susquehanna River, straddling the border of Pennsylvania and New York. The file itself was grainy, full of wind noise and faint breathing. But one thing was clear. At the end of the recording, Megan's voice whispered, "Please, don't take me back there." Back where? Cho triangulated the coordinates. The GPS log traced to an old fire tower at the edge of Redbird State Forest. An unmaintained parcel of land no longer listed on state recreation maps. Old forestry documents showed a one-room ranger cabin half a mile from the tower. Abandoned since the 90s. Ramirez, Harper, and Trooper Myers geared up. It was Sunday morning, the rain unrelenting, pine needles soaking their boots as they hiked the overgrown trail under slick ponchos and handguns tucked under waterproof zippers. The trees leaned in like eavesdropping giants. The cabin appeared after 25 minutes, sagging porch, shuttered windows, rusted chimney. The padlock was gone, door slightly ajar. Inside, the smell hit first, decomposition. Faint but unmistakable. In the corner sat a weathered cot, duct tape hanging from one leg. An old Canon camera was mounted on a tripod in the corner. Power cord chewed by rodents. On the floor, beneath a tarp, something wrapped in flannel. Harper knelt, tugged the tarp back slowly. The body was reduced to partial remains, female. Early decomposition, bruising on the ribs, fingernails chipped, ankles still bound. It wasn't Megan. Ramirez radioed for a recovery unit and a crime scene team. The woman had red dyed hair, now faded and stringy, a hummingbird tattoo on her shoulder. Inside the drawer of a broken filing cabinet, they found an ID, Lila Renner, reported missing from Columbus, Ohio. 2 months earlier, her sister had called Ramirez only days ago. Now she was lying in the woods, wrists taped, camera set to record. Harper confirmed the cause of death 2 days later, manual strangulation, followed by per-mortem blunt trauma to the base of the skull. A cracked molar indicated she had been hit while trying to scream. She had died here, alone, hidden. Later, back at the station, Ramirez reviewed files from Grantham's laptop. In one folder labeled Redbird_samples were dozens of encrypted zip archives. Cho managed to crack one. It contained still frames from video, frame by frame stills of Lila's last moments. She had fought, bit his arm, tried to run. Grantham had titled the subfolder, Wild Things Don't Cage Well. The weight of it pressed down on Ramirez like stone. That night, she confronted Grantham again. You kept her alive. You took her to that cabin. He looked up. She was curious. You strangled her. He didn't blink. She knew it was coming. You're done, Evan. He smiled. I've been done for years. The FBI issued a nationwide request for information. Other states began reviewing cold cases. Already, 3 more missing women from Illinois, West Virginia, and New Jersey were being linked by similarities in Mo. Women aged 18 to 25. Last seen near rural motels or bars. Vanishing after brief encounters with a quiet man named Jay. Grantham had crisscrossed 5 states. He had never held a real job. His income, they discovered, came from selling encrypted video files on deep web channels. He had been part of a closed ring. A digital trail led to an IP address in Massapequa, New York, which routed to a drop server. Cho and cybercrime teams spent 2 sleepless nights mapping out the ring. It wasn't just Grantham. There were others. But he was the one who documented every step. Posed them, filmed them, burned them. As the news broke, the media called him the Archivist. Ramirez called him a coward. Because behind all the elaborate names, folders, rituals, he was just a weak man who had to destroy others to feel powerful. And he was about to face trial for the worst of it. Ramirez didn't sleep the night they identified the body in the Redbird cabin as Lila Renner. She sat in her car under the yellow glow of the precinct parking lot, playing a voicemail again and again. It was from Lila's sister. Left 3 days earlier, please. If you find anything, even if it's bad, I need to know. I can't wake up every morning wondering if she's still out there. Please. The weight of that voice lingered longer than Grantham's grinning mugshot ever could. The next morning, Ramirez and Trooper Myers drove to Cleveland. Donna Whitaker had requested to see the detective again, to thank her. She said, but also, to ask something harder. I want to bury my daughter. Not what's left of her. I want to bury her name with some truth. She handed Ramirez a worn notebook, Megan's journal. Inside were a few scribbled entries from the weeks leading up to her death. One read, Met Jay again. He seems intense. Not sure if it's good or scary. Might just be nerves. Another said, he asked me if I liked to be watched. Donna's hands shook. She didn't tell me anything. I thought she was working late. I should have known. Ramirez didn't answer. There was no right sentence for this kind of grief. Back in Altoona, the prosecution was building the case. Assistant District Attorney Mark Devlin, 45, tough, meticulous, never lost a murder trial in his career, took the lead. He read the files silently, one after the other. Then he looked up at Ramirez. We'll go for second-degree murder. Multiple counts. Add federal charges for trafficking. Unlawful transport of a corpse. Conspiracy across state lines. We bury him. Not capital? She asked. Devlin shook his head. Not in this state. But life without parole is cleaner. No appeals. No oxygen. Across the state line, the FBI began dismantling the network Grantham had once uploaded to. 3 more arrests. A Canadian server seized. But Grantham had been the one with the collection. The architect. The night before the preliminary hearing, Dr. Harper finalized his testimony packet. The official cause of death for Megan Whitaker was listed as multiple sharp force injuries to the neck and abdomen, air embolism due to jugular vein trauma, massive blood loss, no evidence of blunt force trauma consistent with a fall. He included photographs of the liver laceration, the ligature bruising, the camera lens fragment. He'd highlighted, in yellow, the finding that Megan had been alive and conscious for at least an hour after the first wound. Ramirez didn't want to see the videos, but she had to. Court protocol. She sat in the AV room with Cho and Devlin as the evidence review team played a 26-minute clip. Audio only. Megan's voice. The sound of duct tape. Her crying. A drawer opening. Then, Grantham saying calmly, "You're part of the art now." Devlin turned it off. "That's enough for me," he said, throat dry. In court, Grantham showed no expression. He wore a public defender's borrowed suit, gray and a size too big. He sat behind the defense table like a man bored with his own trial. But when Mira Stokes entered the courtroom, everything shifted. She had chosen to testify. Federal prosecutors had granted her immunity. She stood with quiet strength and told the judge everything: how Grantham lured her, isolated her, coerced her, how he told her she was next unless she helped, how she once found him watching the same looped video for hours, staring like it was holy. "He made us feel like we didn't exist," Mira said, "and then he made sure nobody else would know we ever had." When she stepped down, a juror wiped her eyes. Afterward, in a private hallway, Mira asked Ramirez quietly, "Do you think I'm still part of his game?" Ramirez shook her head. "You're part of the reason he'll never play again." Outside, news cameras swarmed. Reporters used terms like digital predator and serial sadist. But Ramirez knew none of them captured the truth. Grantham wasn't a monster. He was worse. He was ordinary, forgettable, mild-mannered, and that's what made him dangerous. In the coming weeks, the courtroom would become the final theater of this long horror. Evidence photos, maps, cell tower data, the plastic tarp, the blood in the console. But in that moment, standing in the soft spring light outside the courthouse, Ramirez thought only of one phrase: "You're part of the art now." And she swore, in that instant, that Megan Whitaker's name would never again be used in any sentence that glorified what he did. She was not art. She was a person. And she was finally going home. The courtroom was wood-paneled and austere, built during the Roosevelt administration and barely modernized since. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead as Judge Lynette Herschel adjusted her glasses and looked out over the room. Rows of folding chairs creaked under the weight of journalists, victims' families, FBI observers, and local retirees who'd turned the trial into their civic theater for the month. At the defense table sat Evan James Grantham, head bowed, hands clasped neatly in front of him. His public defender, Martin Greeley, leafed through a stack of notes, occasionally glancing toward the prosecution's side, where Assistant DA Mark Devlin prepared his witness list. Outside the courtroom, protesters had gathered, holding signs with Megan's name and black and white photos of Lila Renner. "Justice for Megan, say her name," and one that simply read, "He burned her." The judge called court to order. Greeley stood first. "Your Honor, the defense would like to enter a motion to suppress statements made by Mr. Grantham during pre-arrest questioning, citing lack of counsel and the possibility of coercion." Devlin didn't flinch. He waived his rights. On tape, 3 separate times. "Nevertheless," Greeley said, the nature of Detective Ramirez's tone. Judge Herschel cut him off. "We'll hear argument later. Motion denied for now. Proceed." Grantham's plea had remained not guilty. Even with a mountain of evidence staring him down, the defense hoped to cast doubt on premeditation, paint him as mentally ill, or possibly even push for manslaughter. The media called it the panicked artist defense. But Ramirez wasn't buying it. The first witness was Andrew Cho, who walked the jury through the blood evidence inside the SUV, the luminal testing, and the matched DNA. The jurors leaned forward when he explained the pattern of arterial spatter. "Meaning?" Devlin asked. "Meaning she was alive when her neck was cut." Cho said, "Alive, conscious, and fighting." Next came Dr. Harper, who methodically destroyed the accidental death claim Grantham had clung to. "There was no fall," Harper said. No skull fracture, no blunt trauma indicative of head injury. But there were 5 stab wounds. One penetrated the liver, another cut deep into the neck muscle. One vein in particular, the left internal jugular, was severed in a way consistent with sharp force trauma. And what does that imply? Devlin asked. That she died slowly, but not instantly, and not accidentally. A murmur rolled through the courtroom. Then came the surveillance footage from the Blue Cow Saloon. Grantham approaching Megan, smiling, touching her arm. Later, her leaning toward him, phone in hand, letting him type. Jurors watched with rigid jaws as he entered the same number later used to summon her from her house at 4:27 a.m. But the most devastating moment came when Mira Stokes returned to the stand. Dressed in black, she looked Grantham directly in the face as she told her story. The grooming, the photos, the threats. Her voice trembled but didn't break. He told me I was chosen, she said. He said he only took the ones who deserved to be remembered. But he didn't remember us. He erased us. He made us disposable. On cross-examination, Greeley tried to shake her. You never reported this to police at the time? I did, Mira replied. They didn't believe me. No physical injuries reported? I was trained not to leave marks. He told me that. You stayed in contact with him after the alleged abuse? I stayed alive, she said. Silence. Even the jury flinched. Later that afternoon, the defense made their move. Grantham requested to speak directly to the judge. The room quieted. Even Devlin seemed caught off guard. Judge Herschel looked over her glasses. Mr. Grantham, this is highly unusual. You are represented by counsel. I just want to tell the truth, he said. Ramirez folded her arms. She didn't buy it for a second. Grantham stood slowly, adjusted his collar, and looked around the courtroom as though preparing a monologue. I never meant to hurt anyone, he said. I didn't wake up one day planning this. I've struggled with things, images, thoughts, since I was young. I tried to fight it. I did, but it's like a fire. It just burns. He paused. I didn't kill Megan in cold blood. I didn't plan to kill Lila. I tried to stop. But they didn't listen. They didn't understand that I was protecting them from worse. Gasps erupted. Judge Herschel struck her gavel. Order in the court. Grantham went on, ignoring everyone. I didn't torture them. I recorded them to preserve who they were. The real versions, before the world turned them into liars and whores and products. Devlin rose. Your Honor, I request immediate recess and psychological review. The defendant is grandstanding. But Ramirez could see what was happening. Grantham wasn't breaking down. He was performing. He looked at the jury with tears in his eyes, fake tears. Ramirez could tell, and whispered, I just wanted to stop the burning. The courtroom didn't breathe for a full 5 seconds. Then Judge Herschel ordered him silenced. Escorted back to holding. Her gavel echoed like gunfire. Outside, reporters swarmed. The burning plea. They called it. Ramirez called it what it really was. Desperation. He knew the verdict was coming. He just wanted to make it memorable. The courtroom was standing room only by the time the jury selection concluded. 12 men and women, average in every way, now bore the weight of life and death. They were shopkeepers, nurses, retirees, a middle school teacher, a former Marine. Their expressions were a careful mix of blank professionalism and restrained discomfort. Some had seen the news reports. All had heard whispers about the Archivist. Judge Herschel instructed them to disregard everything but what they heard in the room. They nodded, but Ramirez knew that somewhere, deep down, every single one had already decided if they believed Megan Whitaker had suffered. And how much. Opening statements began. Devlin stood first, calm, controlled. Ladies and gentlemen, we are here today because of a fire. A literal one. Yes, a young woman's body, burned beyond recognition, dumped in a ditch, but also a fire of cruelty, a fire of control, the fire that lived in Evan Grantham's mind long before Megan Whitaker ever crossed his path. He paced slowly, hands open. The evidence will show that Mr. Grantham lured Megan. He drugged her, he restrained her, he cut her, he filmed her, and he left her dead. Then he tried to erase her, not just with gasoline, but with lies. He is not just guilty of murder. He is guilty of robbing these women of their humanity. The jury stared, unmoving. Then it was Greeley's turn. He stood, taller than Devlin, with a quiet drawl and the voice of a man used to defending the indefensible. This is not a monster. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a man. A broken one, yes, but a man. Evan Grantham suffers from dissociative identity disorder. He has battled a lifetime of trauma, untreated, undiagnosed. He didn't plan murder. He panicked. He didn't torture. He collapsed. The prosecution will try to paint him as evil. But the law requires you to weigh intent, not emotion, not headlines. Some jurors scribbled notes. Others looked at Grantham, who sat with folded hands, lips pressed together, eyes glassy but unreadable. The prosecution launched their full case over 4 days. They brought back Dr. Harper, who again outlined the fatal wounds. Andrew Cho walked the jury through the cell tower triangulation. Digital forensics teams showed the folder labeled Redbird, its subdirectories, the time-stamped videos, and one particularly damning screenshot of Megan Whitaker, gagged, bound, clearly alive an hour after her supposed fall. Then they played the audio clip. No video, just the sound of Megan's muffled sobs, the scuff of movement, the quiet rustle of duct tape. Jurors winced. One woman blinked rapidly. A man clenched his jaw. When the clip ended, Devlin let the silence stretch. "This is not dissociation," he said. "This is domination." In response, the defense called Dr. Quentin Sarr, a forensic psychologist who testified that Grantham had shown signs of compartmentalized behavior, possibly delusional episodes. He believed the camera purified reality. Sarr said, to him, pain was not real unless acknowledged by others. He's not legally insane, but he is fractured. It was a calculated risk. Admit brokenness without crossing into full legal insanity. Then Greeley made a bold move. He put Grantham on the stand. Ramirez almost laughed. It was the last thing any defense attorney should have done. But Grantham played the role to perfection. Quiet, haunted, articulate. He never denied the horror. He just placed it outside himself. "I wasn't there when she died," he said. "I was, somewhere else. Watching. I couldn't stop it. I thought I could fix her. Make her clean again. But she screamed." He looked at the jury. "I'm sorry. I truly am. But I wasn't myself." Devlin didn't need to shout. His cross-examination was ice. "Did you buy the duct tape?" he asked. "Yes." "Did you wrap it around her wrists?" "I don't remember. But your fingerprints were there." "Yes." "Did you stab her?" "No." "Did you photograph her after she was stabbed?" Grantham paused. "I was trying to understand." "That's not understanding," Devlin said, voice rising. "That's harvesting." The courtroom exhaled as Grantham was dismissed. Closing arguments came fast. Greeley begged for nuance. Devlin asked for truth. The jury was sent out. They deliberated for 5 hours. Ramirez sat outside the courthouse on the stone steps. Clouds rolled in over the hills. Thunder low and distant. Inside, the jury filed back in. The clerk read the verdict. Guilty. On all counts. The courtroom was silent when the verdict landed, as if even the air had been waiting. Guilty on all counts, the clerk had said, voice steady. No one moved at first. Then Megan Whitaker's mother exhaled sharply and covered her face with both hands. Mira Stokes sobbed quietly into a tissue. In the gallery, one of the jurors mouthed the words, "Thank God." Evan Grantham didn't flinch. His eyes remained fixed on the floor in front of him, unmoving, unblinking, as though if he held still enough, the verdict wouldn't apply. But the gavel that followed was absolute. Sentencing was set for the following week. The prosecution prepared to request the maximum penalty allowed: life without parole for 2 counts of murder, aggravated assault, kidnapping, desecration of human remains, and interstate transport of victims. In the days that followed, news outlets exploded. The Archivist found guilty. Grantham convicted in multi-state murder case. Talk shows debated how many other women he might have targeted. Online forums passed around distorted versions of the truth, twisted memes, blurry screenshots, conspiracies. Ramirez ignored all of it. She spent the week quietly helping Donna Whitaker arrange a memorial for Megan. There were no remains to bury, nothing but ash and bone fragments. And even those had been handed over in a sealed forensic box. But Donna insisted on doing it anyway. They gathered in a small chapel in Cleveland. No press, no ceremony, just 30 people, a framed photo, and a black urn no heavier than a bag of sugar. Ramirez didn't speak. She stood in the back, hands folded in front of her, watching as Donna lit a single candle and whispered her daughter's name. Afterward, outside the chapel, Donna pulled her aside. "Thank you," she said, "for seeing her, for not letting her be just a story." Ramirez nodded. She didn't trust her voice to speak. A week later, they reconvened in the courtroom for sentencing. Grantham walked in wearing the same ill-fitting gray suit. He was thinner now, paler, but the eyes were the same, too still, too cold, as if the trial had been a game, and he'd simply lost the final round. When Judge Herschel asked if he had anything to say before sentencing, he stood slowly. "I'm sorry for what happened," he said, "but I didn't do it the way they said. Not all of it. I tried to make it clean. I tried to make it mean something." Ramirez felt bile rise in her throat. The judge didn't look at him. "I've presided over 22 murder trials," Herschel said. "None like this. I believe you understand fully what you did. And I believe you enjoyed it." She sentenced him to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Plus additional years for the other counts, more than he'd ever lived to serve. He was led away in shackles. He didn't resist. Outside, as the courthouse doors opened, sunlight flooded the steps, not sharp, not hot, but soft, warm, and real. Ramirez stepped into it and closed her eyes for a moment. Behind her, the building stood still. Inside, the courtroom was emptying, reporters packing cameras, attorneys gathering files. The trial was over. But in the corners of America, in the forests and rest stops and flickering motel rooms, echoes of what he'd done would live on. In the bodies that hadn't been found, in the women who never came home, and in those who survived, carrying silent bruises and names they no longer use. Ramirez would carry them too. She returned to her office and cleared the whiteboard, erased Grantham's name, packed away the folder labeled Whitaker, M. But she left one thing on the board. A sticky note. It read, "We speak for the ones who can't." Because no matter how clean the files, how tight the evidence, or how heavy the gavel, their work was never really over.